a brand new year, and many things have either reset or are starting on a fresh note. Well, not inflation, because the latest data released by the Statistical Service shows another surge in inflation for December 2022, driven largely by steep increase in food, transport, and housing costs. It went up by 3.8%, 54.1%. That's what we're dealing with as of December. It is the 7th highest inflation rate in the world among 120 nations, including the Eurozone. And according to Bloomberg, of course, that's the highest. So listen to government statistician Professor Samuel Kojo-Kobina-Enim, giving a breakdown of why we're at this record high.
Was food and non-alcoholic beverages 59.71%. All these 5 divisions recorded inflation rates higher than the national average of 54.1% for the month of December 2022. On a month-on-month basis, keeping in mind the national average of 3.8%, we equally identified 5 divisions that on a month-on-month basis recorded inflation rates higher than the national average. But this was led by transport with 6.65%, followed by furnishing, household equipment 5.04%, all recording inflation rates higher than the national average of 3.8%. While we identified housing, water, electricity, and gas recording the overall higher inflation of 82.34%, its contribution to overall inflation was 15.7%. Keeping in mind the contribution of food and non-alcoholic beverages having a weight of about 43.7%, its contribution to overall inflation was 47.5% for the month of December 2022. So although housing, furnishing recorded rates higher than food and non-alcoholic beverages, because of its weight, it had a higher contribution to overall inflation of 47.5%. The division that contributed the least to overall inflation was insurance and financial services, that contributed 0.1% to the December 2022 inflation rate.
You're watching The Pulse. We are back shortly. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Don't forget, record high, 54.1%. That's the latest inflationary figures of December 2022. Well, we'll get the views of industry shortly. In studio with me now is data analyst with Jolly Research Desk, Kofi Ajay, with some analysis on this. And Kofi, I see some figures for you, the last 3 months of 2022, I guess, and where, of course, we are now in terms of the breakdown. Just help us understand some of these figures.
Well, first, I want to start with these the 3 bar charts you see here. First is the headline figure that you just spoke about, 54.1%. That is average inflation. If you go into detail, you find items with inflation rates more than 100%. So it simply means that if you needed, let's say, 100 cedis to buy a good worth 100 cedis. Now you need somewhere around 200 cedis to buy that same, good with that same money. Now, if you look at the rates for non-food inflation, it's a little bit below the headline figure, 49.9%. But the highest, and this is actually higher than the headline figure, is food inflation, which is more than 59%, 59.7%. So just look at these 3 charts that you see on your screen. A headline inflation figure of inflation is 54.1%. Non-food inflation is around 49.9%, and food inflation is a whopping 59.7%. We've actually been tracking this. We want to know how we started 2022 and how we ended 2022. So we started the year 2022, that is last year, with an inflation rate of 13.9%. This inflation rate, we said, was higher because we were moving from the rate of single digits, the 7.9, the 9.2, and then the 8.7 zone to 13.9%. Then we saw inflation rising when we started February, and it started rising from 15.7%. to 27.6%. Then we saw Bank of Ghana coming in with monetary policy rate hikes. Then we saw inflation started, the rate of increase started declining. So it was increasing, but was increasing at a decreasing rate. So instead of this curve you see going up like this, we saw the curve actually bending. So we saw inflation, taming down the rate at which it was increasing, coming down from 27.6% to 29.8%. Then, if you see this 3 points, the last 3 points, and you compare them to where we started the year with, you can actually see that these last 3 points, October, November, and December inflation rates are actually outliers. I was actually expecting, December inflation to be somewhere around 52 or 53 because we saw, diesel prices, fuel prices coming down. The CD was actually gaining some strength. But aside from, these low rates that we see, we ended the year with a very high rate of 54.1%. So let's just look at this. We were expecting the curve to go this way. So I was right. The rate of increase actually decreased, but the rate is still high at 54.1%. So we decided to track the various inflation rates. How do we end every year? Especially, I'm talking about December inflation. And just look at this 54.1% figure and compare it to December inflation rate in 2013. In 2013, December, we ended the year with an inflation rate of 13.5%. In December 2014, the rate was 16.9%. If you look at December 2015, 17.4%, it started declining right from 2016. We are seeing this, like a bowl shape over the U shape over here, where inflation started dropping. So we are looking at currently December inflation rate. But if you compare right after COVID, this is pre-COVID, and post-COVID, even during COVID, 2020, December inflation rate was still around, 10.4%. That's when we saw it moving from the single-digit zone to a double-digit zone of 10.4%. Then 2021, we ended the year with, 12.6%. But if you look at 2022 inflation rate, how we ended the year, it's a complete outlier from all the figures we've been seeing. We look at the top 20 key drivers, and women underwear is still in. It's been in for 3 consecutive months with inflation more than 80%. Blessed.
Let's look at some of the key factors driving this. Are we able to pin that down?
So just like I spoke about women underwear, and if you look at the food aspect, for instance, we still see some cereals still making the list. But still, we are seeing petrol, diesel, all featuring being key drivers of the current inflation rate that we see. On the regional breakdown, for instance, we still have regions recording inflation rates higher than the average figure of 54.1%.
And then the argument comes up about the dollar and the CD rate. The performance, and many attributing to what's happening to inflation as well. Is that far-fetched in terms of drawing that comparison? The fact that, the CD gained marginal strength, then now it's beginning to woefully perform, a reason for which we're seeing that sharp increase in the prices of commodities.
Yeah, so if you look at this chart, you see that, just like I was saying, we're expecting the curve to go this way, straight up, but we see the curve bending. Probably you can attribute this to the kind of appreciation that the CD saw in the month of December. Remember that in the month of December alone, the CD gained more than 40% of its value against the dollar. When it had lost more than 54%, it gained more than 40% of its value in just a month or 30 days. The CD was really doing well. That is why we didn't see this curve following this trajectory, but rather started bending. So we are hoping that January inflation rates also the curve will bend further downwards, probably to, let's say, 52 or 53%. But if you look at this curve, you can actually make the deduction that the appreciation of the CD in the month of December had an influence on the rate of increase actually decreasing here if you look at the curve.
We pray for the very best. Kofi Ajay with our data. team here at Joy News. I want to bring in now Dr. Joseph Obeng, President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Doc, thank you for your time. Earlier, you were asking your members to work on the prices of goods and services on the market, but it appears that looking at what's happening on the ground, it's a far departure from the picture you're seeking to paint. What's accounting for this? Non-compliance or simply the natural cycle of the market?
Businesses do forecast, and that they want to have a long-term stability of the currency. And so you recognize that the dollar came down, the cedi appreciated in value, but it was short-lived, and then it started going up. When it happens like that, people cannot predict the stability of the city, and they will not also reduce as it is expected. And so what will translate for the benefit of the consuming public will be a long-term stability of the currency, and that is very important. And so we have already said that most of our members could not also reduce their prices because they are retailers. The retailers, particularly, they could not reduce the goods because they are bought at the peak prices, and they have nothing to do with the forest. So when the forest comes down, those people are unable to reduce their price unless they are finished with their goods and then restock. And so they are the people who cannot reduce. But most of our members responded positively, and most of the prices came down. But one thing
that you're backtracking, am I getting that sense that you're backtracking on the order you gave to your members at the start of the year? You asked them to revise their prices on the market.
I'm not doing that at all. But I've told you, if government wants prices to go down,
right,
then the onus lies also on government. Because I've told you, businesses do forecasts and they do speculate. Because once the benchmark reversal benchmark was reversed, it means that duties have started going up, VAT have also gone up, and at that time, people are then forecasting that we are going to clear our goods at a higher prices. So business, they won't sell their goods at cheaper price, then they go and pay higher duties and all that. Don't be a rational business person would do that. And so forecasting of some of the things to come. The kind of inflation that we are experiencing here is cost-push inflation. And that if government wants to do something about it, they can do about it. If somebody is going to pay a VAT of his purchases 21%, it's a huge cost. And that is not my making. It's not the traders making. If the duties that we used to have discount, benchmark discount to mitigate the plight of the consuming public have been taken off. And that's why we are calling the government to make sure that the goods that are produced here are protected, and about 80% goods that are not manufactured here, the benchmark should be maintained.
Invariably, you're asking government to start off with its approach on the taxes. That's precisely what you're asking.
Exactly. They are all parts of the cost build-up. The inflation that we are having is not as a result that we have excess liquidity, excess money, supply chain systems for goods. That's the elementary system. What we have here is cost accumulation. The duties that we pay, the foreign exchange, the foreign exchange, and then the freight charges that we pay, and then the taxes that we pay, such as the VAT that has gone up, they accumulate to form the part. In fact, I do not know what is put in the basket, the inflation basket. But then if they are imported, then of course, most of these factors that I've mentioned contribute to the kind of inflation that we are having. It's a cost-push one.
We are
not even expecting that the Bank of Ghana go ahead and also increase the monetary policy rate because the inflation has gone up. because it also come around to compound the situation. Because capital acquisition then goes, cost of borrowing goes about over 40%. And it all also come back to add up to the cost of doing business and then show up inflation again. And so these are the areas that we have to look. If we want to do something about it, we can do it. It's all about pruning down the cost of doing business by way of limiting some of the taxes that we pay, the duties that we pay, and then the cascading effect of the VAT. All of them contribute to the inflation that we are experiencing.
We need to be mindful of this. This is as of December 2022. We're in a new year. The factors are different now. Government taxes, including that of the VAT, which you're dreading so much, will set in from this year. It could complicate the situation, isn't it?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because especially when these factors have started working, the VAT started the 1st of January, benchmark reversal started 1st of January. Then, of course, the duties are going to go up. Only today, somebody called me the exercise goods that you used to clear, 20 feet of about 45,000, has gone up to 100,000 Ghana cedis, the duty that you used to pay. So think about the difference in duty payment alone. And it's going to be added to the cost. And then if you put such an item on the inflation basket, then of course you see upward trend of the price of that product. And most products are going to see that because of the changes in the duties that we are going to experience or started even experiencing from 1st of January.
You made this public that engagements had commenced with government and other stakeholders somewhere late last year in a bid to address some of these challenges that you have. Now you have another opportunity this year. The situation is rearing its ugly head again. The concern is what steps are you taking to engage stakeholders further at a time when, of course, many say this is when you need the solution and we need the solutions fast. So what moves are you making as Guta?
Yeah, it's not only Guta, it's the entire nation at that. Because the consuming public have been at the receiving end. We are not for the Christmas, whatever cost that can will transfer onto the consuming public. So it shouldn't be a fight by the trader itself. We should all, if it is working against us, come behind Guta and then talk to government to remove, because especially with the VAT, definitely government can do something about it, even though it has been gazetted in Parliament and passed on the bill and all that. But there are so many things if the citizenry cannot do. Because with the VAT, I've told you the structure of the tax system itself is not conducive for compliance and is creating a lot of problems. The cascading effect of the VAT, especially on the provisions, that's the food items and all that, is just too overwhelming. So if we are talking about 21%, now cumulatively it will go about 21% being slapped on a essential commodity like milk and all that. Then of course you see that prices will go up.
So what are you looking for as the business community? An immediate reversal?
No. For the benchmark, what we have said is that government wants to help the local industries to thrive, to boost local productivity. That's all right. We want to support that call. But what we are also saying is that the import requirement that we do, we can only outsource about 15 to 20% only within Ghana. And so the bulk of about 80% shouldn't attract the reversal of the benchmark, so that the discount policy should be maintained on those items, so that the consuming public will be mitigated, especially around this time that inflation is so up, and so that the consuming public will be mitigated. Because when we are doing all these things, we have to also look at the final recipient, who is the consumer, and it's very important. And so it's a call that everybody should call the government so that they will know that the suffering masses need some respite. Yeah.
Dr. Joseph Oping, we're grateful. Interesting times ahead. We'll still be on the lookout for the latest development, but I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse. Well,